Silent.
So let's start out with Lindsay. How did you get into softball? You went to college and played softball.
Yes.
How far before that did you start?
So I started playing when I was, I think, like 9 or 10. So I started, I guess, probably later than some girls that are playing softball, because I think they start when they like are playing t-ball, and then the normal story usually goes how they played baseball actually for their towns, and then the town said you can't play baseball anymore, so then they had to switch over to softball. So for me, I guess I was kind of late in the game as far as playing softball. I actually did karate a little bit beforehand, and then I started playing softball and I was good at it. So I just kept playing. But yeah, so when I was like 9 or 10, I got into it and loved it.
And then I found that you were the two-time Gatorade Player of the Year, Rhode Island Player of the Decade.
Yes.
That seems incredibly impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Has
Yes.
it was it always softball?
Honestly, like I said, when I started when I was younger, I realized I was just naturally good at it. And thankfully I was, because it allowed me to, continue my education and go to college and play the sport that I loved. But yeah, I enjoyed it from the minute that I started playing, and clearly I still love it because I'm still coaching now and I can't get away from the game. But yeah, I love it.
Do you find that a lot of coaches that you surround yourself with are former softball players?
That I'm sorry, what did you say that I
You find that the coaches that you surround yourself with are former softball players, or did they join the game after?
I think a lot of times, honestly, the coaches at the collegiate level are people who played. Um, Obviously, there's other people like Diego who kind of find their way into the sport. And I think once you are involved with a good program and a good team and other good coaches, it's kind of hard to leave because it's a good experience, and you kind of the world of softball is extremely small. So like I said, once you make those connections, it's difficult to leave because you enjoy being around the other coaches and the players because they make it kind of worthwhile.
So, Diego, you started in baseball and softball. What were the
Yeah, so
differences coaching depending on what sport it was?
well, I started playing baseball, and then my sister played baseball up until high school. And when she made the transition, naturally, I made the transition, and I just fell in love with coaching softball because I realized the girls are tougher than the guys. So it's that's kind of how I got into it. I kind of bit the coaching bug, and I fell in love with the game and their competitiveness, and that's kind of why I'm still in it, or I hope to be. So we'll see.
What do you guys think? And either one of you can sound off first. What do you think is the most important aspect of being a coach at the college level?
I'll go first. So for me, I think the main reason why I wanted to get into coaching was because of my own experiences as a player. And I think, unfortunately, kind of what we were talking about before is that coaches really don't have much education before they get into the coaching field. So it's just kind of, to be honest, like them winging it. And with that comes a lot of coaches who either aren't experienced or maybe don't have great coaching styles. So for me, I wanted to get into coaching. Unfortunately, is because of more so the bad experiences that I had. Obviously, the good experiences, I took those positives kind of along with me, but I realized how much of an impact a coach can have on a player's life. And like I said, unfortunately, because of some of the negative experiences I had, I knew I wanted to get into coaching, and I wanted to be the coach that kind of went against like the norm that's out there right now.
Diego.
Yeah, I guess for me, just because I have a sister, she's been exposed to some very good coaches and some where she didn't have such a good experience of. And I realized that in order for a coach to be meaningful or impactful, they do have to go, or they have to be open to evolving with the players as well. Every couple of years, there's a new generation of players and the way they think. And I am very passionate in trying to inspire these females to become their best selves. I think the ones that achieve like great levels, whether it's in the sport or outside of sports, they have a very strong sense of like self-confidence. and sometimes like the societal pressures don't allow them to blossom. So to me, like that's just one of those things where, you know, if I see a female athlete and I'm like, man, this girl could be so good if she just believed more in herself, I think that is what kind of drives me, is to how can I provide that sense of almost like confidence by just allowing that individual to be more of themselves. So, you know, a lot of coaches, and I evolved a lot myself. So I guess I started off being more like militant, detail oriented. And now I think I would consider myself more of like a player's coach, but there's a balance there. So, you know, I think that is something, showing your authenticity, and, you know, you can't be afraid to make mistakes or look foolish yourself. And once they see that, then I think it sets the stage for more like progress, including themselves, because they have to see that you're comfortable first. So that's kind of been my approach, and that has also allowed me to grow as a person and a coach. So.
For sure. Within that kind of coaching style, what role does mental health play?
I think a big thing kind of playing off of just having a certain type of coaching style, the biggest thing is making sure that your players know that you care about them as a person, not just as a player. And mental health kind of gets tied into that just by, you know, having weekly check-ins, letting them know that you're there for them if they need to talk about whatever it might be, because a lot of times, I mean, in college, you're there with them more than, let's say, their parents and maybe their family is. So you want to make sure that they know, you know, you're always there for them, whether it's about school, outside life, drama, hopefully not too much on the team, but just whatever might be, you know, bothering them. They know that, you know, you have an open door and you'll sit and talk with them. And if you can't help them with whatever problems they're having, you can help provide them with the resources that either your campus provides or just somebody else that they can talk to. And I think just the fact that as a player, if you know that your coach actually cares about you and it's more than just a relationship on the field, they're going to play a lot harder for you. And I know it's not obviously only about playing, but I think you just kind of respect your coach a little bit more. And it just kind of, you have a better relationship with them if you know that, hey, this person actually cares about me. They want me to be successful, not just in softball, but life after softball. And they actually care about my overall well-being and want me to be healthy and make sure that I'm going to have a successful life.
Diego.
Yeah, I think relatability is a key component of building that trust. I know myself when I was in college, you know, I've always been a perfectionist, and you know, I think I achieved a relatively good amount of success in the sport that I was involved in, and school and the social scene, but I didn't realize at the time that that was not healthy. You know, and so after college, I spent many years doing self-reflection, like why didn't I achieve the potential I knew I was capable of? And that journey just led me to just learn more about what mental health truly is. And ultimately, like, you don't know what other people are going through. You know, I don't care who you are, like, you don't know. And sometimes, and unfortunately, there is a double standard, you know, in men versus women. And I feel like a lot of these females, they sense to feel more pressure than their male counterparts. And that's unfair, you know. So I think that establishing some sort of relatability, that no one is perfect, and just giving them the sense that it's okay to be yourself, it's okay to make mistakes. Like, college should be a time in someone's life where they are able to feel a safety net. But usually they don't, especially as athletes. You know, they feel the pressures from athletics, from their coaches, from their parents, to almost like pay their dues because of the support prior. And that is very unhealthy. You know, it's just one of the things that I truly just don't believe it should be that way. Also, being able to establish like meaningful conversations, you can't force them, even if it comes from visiting a counselor, you know, because who's to say that that person, you know, isn't going through stuff themselves. So I think establishing that level of trust naturally over time, like Lindsay said, like, you know, you have to establish that comfort zone first, and perhaps share common experience. It's like we're all human. We all have emotions. We all feel things. We all respond to stress, hurt, everything differently, and that's not easy. Just being a little bit more of yourself. And I try to stray away from, I guess, giving advice. I try to perhaps share more of like my vulnerability through, hey, this is what I felt during this time, and I was lucky that I had a safety net. When I reflect back on my college experience, I would kind of consider myself on the side of a success as it relates that I did graduate. Like, I'm still here today, but unfortunately there's a lot of, it's something that's not talked about, and a lot of people don't really rebound in a positive way from that. So that's kind of my thought on it.
Getting back to that conversation and kind of sense of relatability between you and your coaching staff, between an athlete and their coaching staff, how does that differ when you're working with a younger population?
So I definitely think it differs in terms of just kind of knowing who you're talking to. And I think kind of what Diego was talking about before, of as much as if you want to have conversations as a coach, they definitely can't be forced. So like for me in the new situation that I'm in this new role as a head coach, yes, I want to be having those relationships and building those relationships with my players and just overall getting to know them and who they are. But at the same time, I can't force, like, I don't want to say intimate conversations, but like an actual conversation with them where they already feel comfortable with me. So I think the biggest thing is just building that relationship, and it can start from, something basic, kind of like what Diego was talking about. But I think the biggest thing comes with that relatability. And for me, I think it's easy for me as a female head coach to talk to them about my own experiences. I was a transfer student. So, oh, why did I transfer? What things did I like? Did I not like? But I think the biggest thing is really just connecting with them, making them feel like, hey, you're not the only one going through these things. It might have been me. It might be somebody else that I know. And then just kind of building that bond over time, because it definitely can't be forced. But I think just acknowledging kind of everybody's personalities. And I think for me, that's the biggest thing that I'm going through right now, is really getting to know the players individually and see how they are as a person, how they interact with teammates, how they deal with conflict, how they deal with time management. So kind of all of the things that people don't really think about behind the scenes, but tying that into, okay, this is my thought of this person. This is how I need to interact with them. Maybe this is how I can get a little bit more information out of them. And at the same time, let them know that I'm here for them and wanting to build that relationship.
Going off of that relationship building kind of as a prereq of coaching, when you're working at a school that doesn't have mental health resources adequately available for its students, how do you as the coach approach conversations like that when you do see a student who may be struggling?
For me, I mean, I think luckily I've been at schools where there are resources available. And I think with today, because of how prevalent mental health is, I would say almost every college and university is trying to make it so that those resources are available, not just for student athletes, but for students in general, to make sure that, if you need to talk to somebody is there for you on campus. But I really think, I mean, it definitely is difficult as a coach. I know I've talked to other coaches where they feel stressed out because coaches really don't get the training that they need in terms of having those conversations. And yes, we can have those conversations, but making sure, we feel comfortable enough to say the right thing and make sure that we are doing the right things and providing them with the right resources. So I definitely think it's difficult. I think each coach kind of, unfortunately, just like figures it out, maybe by doing the right things, maybe by doing the wrong things. But I definitely do think that it is difficult for a coach. At least today, I think there definitely should be a little bit more training in terms of how to have legitimate conversations with athletes, because I know even if schools provide the training just to say that they've provided it, a lot of times it's like modules online where you're not having an actual conversation and figuring out, okay, how can I talk through a legitimate situation with a player on my own team if they're freaking out? How can I also like be there for them, be a calm voice, and like help them get through a situation? So I think it's obviously an interesting topic, and right now with how serious mental health is, every college and university is kind of figuring it out. I know the NCAA is trying to figure it out, but I definitely think it would be beneficial to have more of like training sessions, I guess, where you have actual, I don't want to say like real life conversations, but like things that will actually help you for a potential situation in the future.
For sure. Diego?
Yeah, I think like Lindsay said, I think it starts with more of like, I guess, awareness. All schools have mental health resources, but at least even through my own personal experience, it seems that it kicks in when things start to go wrong. And I think that's more of a, and this is just my own opinion, but I think sometimes that could be more of like a societal problem because we tend to glamorize the peaks of journeys, success, high success, but we don't tend to really glamorize the navigation of the ups and the downs, where success is not linear. It's peaks and valleys. And if we were trained at a younger age to just be a little more present and understand that every dip is part of building a stronger foundation, then I think that we would be more of like a communal environment, and have these. I think the invisible forces of support would be felt at a higher level. Where right now it seems to me like even our generation of coaches and older generations, we all come from a different time, and it's like the no pain, no gain, the hustle mentality, the grind, and that is actually not healthy. I know personally, I try to work on that every day, and it's not easy for myself either. But it is something that I think does have to be emphasized more, is more of like the navigation of how to figure things out, how to, resolve conflicts. Um, I think one of the greatest books I've ever read is The Messy Middle, and it talks about navigating the hardest paths. And it talks about how to confront like challenges, how to get out of and navigate the dips and valleys. Like if we're here talking, you have survived everything you have ever been faced with, and that is not easy because a lot of it is, psychological. So it's definitely comes from training, perhaps more from, like I said, like a relationships driven point of view. And, maybe instead of mental health, building mental strength. So, there's a lot of play on words that I try to use sometimes to kind of reinforce those core values that I believe in. But it's not easy because even through colleagues, you talk to colleagues and we have different experiences, we have different like paths. And sometimes when you have two parties, me personally, I like to lean into uncomfort situations, but usually other people like to like go back, and that's not good either because like the best things in life are built through friction. So but it is a very complex world right now, and I think we are going in the right direction, but good things take time. So
I think the biggest thing, kind of going off of what he just said too, is that especially with softball, and we can kind of only speak on this sport just because we're both involved in it. If you look at coaches across the board, you have coaches like me that are in their mid to late 20s, and then you have coaches that have been in the game and they're in like their 60s. So kind of what he talked about is everybody's from a different time, and everybody kind of has, like we talked about, has their own kind of coaching style, and what worked in the past definitely doesn't work today. As far as with just if you think about it, the athletes, and let's say just what I don't even want to say the younger generation because I'm younger, but like what kids are going through now, like in high school, and how they're taught. And I don't want to say this in a bad way, but like kids nowadays are coddled. I know everybody talks about like participation trophies and all of that stuff. So it's like trying to find the balance between where these younger athletes are today, and then now think about where, let's say, the coaches that are in their 60s might be, and what they thought back in the day. And winning is everything. However, we need to get there by any means possible. You're going to have a clash at some point in time. So I think it's just maybe realizing, yes, you can have your own unique coaching style, that could be on the field. When you get off the field, you need to be an actual person and interact with your athletes and make sure they know that they are valued.
Diego.
No, I mean that kind of sums up, I guess this topic, because I think that, we both have overlaps in how we think, but yeah, that's I agree with a lot with what she says as well. So
Yeah, I think that it's so interesting the way that this new crop of student athletes is pushing for a more important mental health dialogue. But what they're seeing is older coaches who are not willing to open that up for them.
Yes.
And I think that that's just a really disappointing distinction that's being made in a bad way.
yeah,
And it
I
leads
think
to conversations that should be had that aren't being had.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also has to do with like how social media is impacting our society nowadays, because social media is influencing how people see gratification. Like we are all like prone to instant gratification now. Someone can say they're not. Yes, you are. You definitely smile when you get that double tap and the likes and all. Like that is why social media companies now pretty much around the world is because they were able to hack the behavioral components of how humans, think. And I think that has a lot to do with it. We can't change that. So we have to adapt, and I think that's where it kind of starts with awareness, but you can't control the awareness of a full team if you can't control your own self. So I think it is about just being more present, and hopefully you can inspire one person, or if that one person can inspire you, it starts to grow and that good energy starts to grow. But that's kind of how I think that things will get certainly better over time, because it's not going to change. It just has to evolve.
I think something awesome too. I know that we have like our own professional development things. For softball, it's the NFCA, and we have like a mentoring session where you can choose to be kind of it's just like an activity and an event at nighttime where you can connect with other coaches from different levels, all different ages. And one of the ones that I went to, which to me was super important, I think it was my first year ever going to the event, was talking about the book The Anatomy of Trust, and then something I can't remember what exactly it was that we talked about it, but talking about love languages, which I know a lot of times is used in like relationships and stuff like that, but to me that's something that's super important. And I know that we did kind of like, I don't want to say quizzes, but we did some type of things, with our team so that our coaches, and I like to kind of do this as well, our coaches can see, how you like to be praised, because a lot of times I think kind of getting wrapped into the same thing of one coaching style works for all of your players. That's not necessarily true. You have to adjust and be willing to adjust depending on how your player maybe takes feedback or reacts to situations. So I think kind of looking at it from the scope of love languages, like, okay, do meaningful conversations mean more to them than receiving praise at practice? So kind of looking into how each player responds and reacts. And that might go a long way, because as a coach, I might think everybody responds great to being praised at practice, but that ties into kind of like the mental health. If they feel like I'm not doing, or if I'm not praising them and acknowledging them through what I'm thinking I'm doing, that's where it kind of clatters and like clashes. So I think it's just, again, realizing every student athlete is different and not one thing is going to work for everybody.
Yeah, the whole topic on love languages. So I was kind of exposed to that when I was coaching at Hofstra. I never really, I was never intrigued by it in the sense that, being a guy, it's like, oh, you got to be tough, this and that. And then, but I remember reading about it in a football book once, and I was like, oh, what is this about? And I just kind of stored it. And then when I was at Hofstra, someone asked me, like, do you know what yours are? And I'm like, no. And I think it could have been even a conversation with Lindsay where she said that an NFCA, I believe the head coach at Florida State actually gives that test to her players.
Mhm.
So I went down a rabbit hole in like one weekend of like, I need to learn this. And then I became fascinated by it because I was like, wow, like I learned what I was. And I was like, I didn't know that one of them for me was like words of affirmation. I was like, now I know why when someone gives me that little ounce of like, hey, Diego, this is awesome. Now I know why that fires me up, because I was already doing it naturally. Like, and I know my personality, when I do anything, I do it with like heart, soul, everything, and I'm driven by passion. I'm not driven by external, validation. But that for me was actually a life-changing experience, because I just realized, how come they don't teach this in elementary school? How come they don't teach it in high school? We're taught math, we're taught science, but we're not taught the foundation of communication.
And relationship building.
As it relates to like society, and everyone's different. Sometimes you have someone that's quiet, it doesn't mean they're shy. I guess in college I was more exposed to like the Myers-Briggs models, the personality traits, all of that. So I knew what I was from all of those personality tests, but I never really dove deep into like the love languages. And then when I saw it was being used by some of the best coaching staffs in softball, I like to follow a lot of college football, and I realized, oh man, they even doing it in football. And that inspired me to study it at a deeper level. And also as to how it relates to like science, because the world of psychology now is becoming much more science driven, especially in the past 10 years, where a lot is being discovered now, and there's a lot of strong correlations with what used to be theories are now becoming like, it's becoming, hard science, more so in the world of positive psychology, and how it relates to like development of people in general. So
I will say, so we have 5 minutes left on this interview. I'm not done with my questions yet. So when this timer does run out, the same link that you used to get into this one will still work. Just click the link. I'll meet you right back here.
Okay.
But I will say right now, and I'll open up this question to either one of you. What creates a positive team atmosphere? Is it built on the field, off the field, or a mixture of both?
To me, I think it's a mixture of both. I think that it definitely starts off the field. And I honestly think a lot of times teams don't really focus too much on the team building aspect of it. But to me, if you don't have a good kind of, I guess, I don't want to say team culture, but if you don't have a good atmosphere and, trust and respect amongst your teammates, there's no way that it's just going to randomly be brought onto the field. And a lot of times I think coaches think that it's just naturally going to happen. I think with some players, yes, that could happen, maybe just depending on the type of person that they are. But if they're more quiet, more shy, maybe that's not the case. So for me, I feel like I've been involved as a player and as a coach on teams where they don't focus too much on the team building aspect of it. They just naturally like expect it to happen. They're your teammates, you're going to be around them all the time. And then I've also been in situations where I don't want to say we forced team building and team bonding, but we just provided, I guess, situations and different experiences for the team to kind of interact. And I think the biggest thing is just giving them an opportunity to have conversations and build their relationships and trust amongst their teammates outside of, the sport that they're playing, so that it can then just when it's on the field, it's something that happens naturally, because it's something that definitely can't be forced.
yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. I think any high performing team, you have to have your, I guess, set core values or your goals, whether that's performance driven, whether it's how you want to feel, whether it's the balance of on the field, off the field activities. But like, if one of the goals is that, you want to have fun, then you also have to find ways to celebrate the not so fun things when things start to go south a little bit, because that's going to allow you to pivot. And the best performers in life are able to pivot on the fly. If anyone is kind of stuck in their ways, or are ignoring, the bigger picture or even the smaller things, then who's to say what works and what doesn't? I think it's more of an art, and you just have to have a culture where everyone at least makes an effort to be in the present, while having, eyes on the prize. And if everyone has each other's back, then hopefully the team is able to figure it out, and strive ahead.
And you could have, I mean, like I said, I've been on teams that have done team building and teams that haven't. I think the biggest thing is you could have the most successful team in terms of stats, in terms of player wise. And then when you get on the field, you can kind of, I think, see it maybe more so with like travel teams, because now the thought is, people are joining teams and guest playing kind of for teams all over the country, just to make sure that they're getting recruited. You could have the best players on a team, and if they're not used to either practicing together or having conversations with other people on the team, it's not going to go well. When you have a pressure situation on the field, things are going to be chaotic. So I think just even if it's something as small as like communication, that is huge. And like if something happens in a game, if you don't have that, I don't want to keep saying trust, but just an overall relationship with the other people that are on the field with you, you're not going to trust your teammates. You're not going to have trust that they're going to respond in a situation. I think the biggest thing too, especially like if you think about pitchers in terms of softball, like some of the best pitchers struggle because they don't have trust that their teammates are going to make plays behind them. So something as very small as just trusting the people around you, I think, again, providing an experience for them where they can just have some type of relationship building with the other people they're playing with, that goes a long way.
All right, so I'm not going to ask another question yet because we have less than a minute on this. So I'm going to end this one and I'll meet you right back here.
Okay.
But yeah, so communication between teammates is crucial, but let's also talk about communication between teammates and coaches. How do you make sure that you're fostering the right kind of communication style from that hierarchy's point of view? And either one of you can start.
I think for me, as much as you don't want to have those relationships forced, I think, like, I'll give my own example of from the position I'm in now. I feel like it almost has to start off forced, where like, so for me, we have biweekly meetings where I'm just providing the space for them to come to the office and just like literally talk about whatever. So I think it kind of has to be forced at first. And that's just kind of how I've done things in the past. But I think just from those few situations, you might have maybe a handful of conversations where they're coming into the office to talk to you. But it just allows them, I think, the opportunity to, hey, something's going on. I just want to go and talk to my coach about it. And I feel like when you say my coach, it sounds like something that like it's like a stressful or like a forced situation. But I feel like just because they build that kind of comfort with you, I like to tell our players all the time, like, I have an open door. They literally come by all day. And sometimes it's annoying. I'm like, I'm trying to get work done. I can't be here talking to you guys. But to me, I'd rather have it where they're coming in versus a situation where they're either scared to come and talk to me or they don't want to come and talk to me. I want them, yes, yes, I am their coach and I want them to know that. They obviously have the respect for that. But at the same time, I think kind of what Diego talks about before, yes, I am a player's coach. I want them to know that I have their backs. Like, I've been in your situation. I want you to be so successful. I want to share in that success with you guys. And for me, if we aren't successful or if we are stressed out or we have conflict, that starts with me. So I want to make sure that I'm kind of addressing all the things, making sure that they feel comfortable enough to come and chat at any point in time, whether it's about, like I said before, life, softball, school, whatever it is.
Yeah, so I think even, I guess, communication in the college athletic space, my experience has been perhaps a little different, or at least I have a different lens on it, just because I would consider my career in college athletics, fairly recent compared to most people. But I also have business experience and working in the creative world. And what I've noticed is that a lot of coaches, because they either came up as players or they played in college and they never experienced a different world, I think those skill sets aren't as developed as perhaps when communication is developed outside of it. I know specifically in the creative world, it's more like art, whether it's art through graphic design or development or building an app or anything like that. You're building something from nothing, and communicating or learning how to navigate and work as a team is 100 times more difficult in that world than it is in I guess college athletics so far. And the only reason I say that is because I don't think enough coaches have been trained on how to properly engage in very strong conversations that involves everyone to get past their comfort zones. And that is something that I think every coach, again, you know, it comes with training, but usually when you start coaching, you're not taught how to communicate at a high level as it relates to navigating ups, downs, and how dealing with confrontation, you know, but there is healthy confrontation too. And that's something that, just because I have a little bit of experience of it, I try to introduce that, or at least show or demonstrate that I am willing to make that a source of positive, constructiveness in communication, but it is not easy. So, but anyways, yeah, I do agree. I think that communication style just has to be more open. There has to be some sort of a goal, like Lindsay said. Like sometimes it has to be almost forced or outlined, or so that it allows the parties to also learn and evolve and grow together. You know, and that's what I think has to be the common thread, is you have to have a goal for every discussion.
How would you define healthy confrontation? Because I've never heard that term before and I love it.
How would I describe it? Well,
Especially with a girl's sport. Let's hear it.
if you're a male, you have to deal with a lot of pushback. Because I want to believe that I am able to dive into it healthy, but personally now I know I get misinterpreted and I get mischaracterized a lot, because specifically sharing my experience, considering that I'm now in the South now, I'm born and raised in Jersey, you know, so a lot of people say that, oh, you have a Jersey attitude and this and that. Well, I don't want to say I don't know what that means. It could be our tone of voice. It could be the words we use, you know, but we're still human, you know, I know I'm a good person, this and that. And sometimes tone can supersede like your intent or what you are trying to get across. So I have learned to take time and or at least embrace the process of time as to how it developed, as to how it could create meaningful relationships, because you know, no one really knows how much you know until they know how much you care, and that is a daily action. Like I can't talk that. I got to be able to show that day in and day out. I got to show that not only in the good times but in the bad times. And when things turn bad, I'm not the type to ever run from anything, you know. But a lot of people immediately, the moment they face that confrontation, or the moment they face that challenge or adversity, they hide or they shut down, and that's where growth stops. You know, and that goes for anything in life. Like the moment you hit a ceiling, it could be a perceived ceiling, it could be an internal ceiling. That is not easy, you know. Like you could have a rose grow out of concrete, you know, you have cactus grow in the desert. So it's you got to be able to push through, and that is something that I personally am committed to. Of course, it comes with the territory, so it's not always you know, good when going through it, but I make my best attempt to embrace it. So that's the best way I can describe that, I guess, to try to be healthy and not let it get to me, but we're all human.
Lindsay, how would you define healthy confrontation?
So I think the biggest thing, especially with females, I think it's The best way to address confrontation is before confrontation actually happens. So having the conversation about confrontation and saying, we know for a fact, like, so with my team, we have 25 student athletes. So we have 25 females on top of me and our assistant. So that's 27 females all interacting on an everyday basis. So I think just letting the team know, like, hey, yes, conflict is going to happen, whether it's with another player or with me as a coach. And I think the biggest thing that my team likes to do is just address the conflict like head on. So I know something that they like to do is if something has happened or if there's something that's like awkward, they sit down in the locker room together and they're like, hey, if it's between 2 people, 3 people, however many, you guys need to figure it out or else we're not leaving the locker room. So they're kind of providing the space for each other to do that, which to me, I feel like is kind of a thing maybe like that males would do, where they just like kind of talk about it right away, which definitely females don't do, but they're doing it in their own unique way of, okay, we're all together in a space. Everybody's hearing everything, everything's coming out into the open and they're going to talk about it. So I know like as a team, they like to do that. And then for me as a coach, I know I've talked to them like, if something I'm either saying isn't coming across the right way or you don't understand or they're upset maybe about playing time, whatever it might be, like I said before, through those relationships that I should have already built at that point in time, my door is always open. Come and talk to me and I will have an honest conversation with you about either what I'm saying or, like I said, if you're not playing or if you don't understand something in the moment, explaining it in every way possible to try to get you to understand it. But I don't think I don't think with females or with female sports there really is maybe a healthy way to have conflict. But I think kind of just addressing it and let's squash this before it turns into something bigger. Because if it does turn into something bigger, it's gonna get in the way of our end goal, which should ultimately be winning.
How does it make you feel as a head coach that your players are taking it upon themselves to work out conflict?
I think it's awesome. I think that it's awesome, but it's also a little scary because I do know how females are and knowing different personalities, like things might not come across the right way. But I also think it's great that they're doing it in a setting where the whole team is there. They're not just like locking 2 people in a room and forcing them to figure it out. So I think with that, not only do I kind of know their personalities, they also know each other's personalities. So if it is a situation where maybe somebody who is, let's say, a little more vocal, maybe something comes across the wrong way, I think it's good for other people to maybe input their voices and say like, oh no, it didn't mean to come across this way, or this is what she meant by it. But I think it's awesome because it gives me, especially with all the different things that you have to be thinking about, one less thing to worry about. But it also gives me, I guess, comfort in knowing that if there is something going on, they feel comfortable enough talking about it amongst themselves and they're going to figure it out. It's not something that's just going to be pent up and then all of a sudden be let out one day.
And then speaking of kind of down the vein of conflict resolution, do you find that, in either one of you can answer this, do you find that selecting captains comes from handling adversity or handling success?
So I've actually had a lot of conversations with different coaches about having captains. I have been on teams where we do have captains and teams where we don't have captains. Personally, I think that when you deem people as a captain, in every situation that I have seen, a lot of times people kind of go on a power trip. And I think that's just more so maybe they don't necessarily know how to handle the term being a captain. I've had the conversation with my team this year of, if you need that title to be a captain, in my eyes, you're not a true leader. I feel like somebody who just naturally will step up and be there for the team and do things when they're asked of them. To me, that's a leader. You don't need to be vocal. Sometimes you can be silent and just lead by example. So for me, I feel like if you need that term captain, in my eyes, you're not really a true leader. So what I like to do is kind of like a leadership council where you have somebody from each class. And that's not necessarily deeming like those people that are on that council as the captains are going to be necessarily the leaders at practice. It's more so just like an inner circle for me so that I have one person from each class that I know I can talk to and see, hey, is there anything going on with like the freshman class? Is there anything that I need to know about whatever class it might be? But for me, I like it that way just because I'm hearing from all the different voices. Because again, even if 25 girls, let's say that they're best friends, for a fact that, some people are definitely closer. So it gives me an opportunity to hear from different classes, and then also gives me an opportunity to kind of do it almost, I guess, as like I don't want to say a teaching moment, but help, let's say the underclassmen learn maybe from the upperclassmen about different things that are going on in their lives that they haven't even thought about yet. Or like, okay, this is a really stupid complaint or whatever's going on versus what the seniors are bringing to the table. So it helps them learn and kind of, I think, helps them figure out, okay, is this actually important or is this something stupid that I'm a freshman worrying about? But I think it just also helps them kind of grow and give them an opportunity to talk and learn from their other teammates as well.
For sure. Diego?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what she says. I think the true leaders in any endeavor, they are the ones that just quietly rise to the occasion, and have that sense of confidence that are able to hopefully steer the ship in the right in the direction of the common goal. You also have leaders, you also have natural born leaders that steer the ship away from the common goal, and that's not healthy either. So I think it is about just being able to identify who are those people, whether they have the label or not, and kind of empower them to give the best of themselves towards the common goal or the group. And hopefully if you have that, if you're able to mix a little bit of and sprinkle a little bit of everyone's magic into the mix, then you're going to have a real positive culture. But I think even when coaches try to identify, the simple process of identifying talent or people or certain character traits is based on yourself too. So that is something that you have to have. If it's coming from a staff, everyone's compass has to be pointing at true north. Because if you have one that isn't, so it's definitely something that is I believe a little bit more of an art. Sometimes you have to lean into your players. You can look at the sun or you can look at the stars for direction. So, and sometimes it's tapping into them and finding out who are the ones that could help us the most in specific areas. Sometimes you have a player that isn't well liked, but sometimes being liked and having a strong sense of direction, like direction is more important than speed sometimes. And that is something that, I think teams have to slowly learn to understand, because speed, you could correlate speed with instant gratification, but having too much fun can also come at the expense of perhaps, getting better as a team or winning or etc. So, I think you do have to have your key components that are able to get the train back on tracks. So
I think too, it kind of takes it back to that relationship building. So obviously identifying that everybody has different strengths and different personality traits that kind of work for them. And I know with situations that both Diego and I have been in terms of like on our coaching staff at Hofstra with different players, I think it's identifying the player's strengths and helping them realize how they can use that as a strength to be a leader. So kind of what he was talking about, you could be very outgoing, but if it's in the way that, it's distracting other players or you're just there to have fun, that's not going to help us. Helping them realize like, yes, awesome. Use your outgoing personality. People are going to follow you, whether you like it or not. Get them on board in the right direction. So I think it's just helping them realize what their strengths are and then trying to, I don't want to say twist it, but get them to acknowledge like, hey, this is how you can use it to your strength and also like the team strength.
What is it about coaching that lights you two up?
For me, I think the biggest thing is just one, obviously being around the game, just because I enjoy being around it. And it's just something, like I said before, that's come naturally to me. And I enjoy, being around other competitive people that want to win, because that's how I am. I want to win. I want to be very successful. But for me, I think it's definitely the relationships that you build with the players along the way. I think knowing from every institution that I have played at and also worked at, all the different relationships that I have brought with me throughout my career so far, um, and all the different things that they have brought me, I think it's just awesome knowing that you have an impact in somebody's life. And like the previous place that I just came from, like I have or not teammates, old players that are still texting me now as if now we're friends. So like my time being their coach is done, but they still trust me and care about me enough to like continue conversations and like keep me involved in their life. And to me, I value that the most. So just knowing I have
Cool.
made an impact, and now, yes, I'm not your coach and you're not my player. Now we're friends and we can kind of continue continue our journey in life as friends, not just how we were.
Yeah, I really like that. Diego.
Same. So I guess for me, I'm incredibly passionate of helping, whether it's athletes or people in general, like reach levels that they didn't think was possible, whether it's personally or in athletics. And that definitely stems from the chip on my shoulder that I don't feel that I did, you know. So that's one. And in that process, and as I evolved as a coach, I realized, and as I like just naturally as I learned different styles and became even more comfortable with myself, as you know, in the world of coaching, it is about the relationships, you know. And I mean, there are players that I coached in like high school and travel ball that still reach out to me. And every school that I've been at, you know, they all keep in touch here and there. And that to me, it's like, wow, like I didn't realize that I left that much of an impact. And also some of the most meaningful outreach for me has been in times where I knew that I knew this player had it in them, and I didn't give up on them. And at the time, they thought I was being like too much. And I mean, there was one player my first year at Hofstra that later on, she won a conference title, and she's like, "Now I know what you meant." You know, there was another one that said, like, "Oh, I didn't realize at the time, but now that I'm in college, that's what you meant." And I was like, wow, because at the time, it didn't feel good. Like at the time, it didn't feel good for the player or for me because I knew I was not going to give up on that person. And they probably felt too much pressure from me. So that helped me grow as well because, you know, sometimes you have to, if it feeds you enough to keep pushing, you know, you may not realize it in the moment, but you know, the answer reveals itself later on. And you know, that to me is also that reinforces my philosophy on just respecting time as a way for allowing people to develop, because certainly it helps me develop, but you know, everyone grows at their own timing. You know, some people grow up later in life, some people, you know, achieve wisdom very early in their life. You know, we're all different with all different backgrounds. So, but yeah, same thing, relationships and just, you know, trying to help others achieve what they don't think is possible. Like that drives them more than anything.
I think something that's big for me now as well. So the school that I'm at is we're a D3 program. And for me, yes, it's been an adjustment because I've been at D1 programs in the past. So I think something that really, I would say, drives me now, obviously, one, yes, I am the head coach. I need to be driven. But I think seeing just like the overall passion that all of the girls have to play the game, they're not even being paid to be here, which is crazy for D3. They can't get any type of scholarship. They're here to be successful and obviously get their degree, but seeing that the passion that they have and how competitive they are, they just want to be out there playing softball. So yesterday, for example, I was out on the field, let's say from 10:45 in the morning, and this is not an exaggeration, 10:45 in the morning to literally 9 p.m. at night, doing all different individuals throughout the day. And then we had team practice at night. But having like they're at practice at 9 p.m., diving back and forth, literally sweating, disgusting, dirty, and just because they love it and they know that putting in the work now is going to get them successful. So I think seeing how much they care about the sport when, you know, they're not, like I said, they're not getting any money to be here. I think it's awesome for me to see as a coach, and then comparing it to the situations I've been at D1 programs, where you almost have to sometimes maybe convince players to want to be out at the field, and then seeing players here that are literally getting nothing to do that want to be out there so bad. To me, that's awesome. So the least I can do is give all of my effort to them.
Yeah. Let's talk about the app that is coming out tomorrow-ish.
That's the best way to say it, tomorrow.
What are you hoping to get across with this release? What is the app going to do? And what can we look forward to?
So the biggest thing with our app, and just kind of like our business in general, so our company is called Alphas Alliance. So our plan with this is to really kind of connect coaches, and to provide a place for coaches to kind of what we call like a little virtual assistant. So we're in the process of building a full toolkit for them, but this kind of ties into everything that we've been talking about. A lot of what people don't realize, as a coach, you have so many administrative tasks that you have to do. It's not just about coaching. So on top of all that relationship building we were talking about, and being at the field and practicing and being successful, you have all the things in the office that you actually have to do. So for us, for both of us, it was super important to kind of think of a way of how can we help make a coach's life easier. So like I said, we are trying to build this overall toolkit, which is essentially like a virtual assistant. And with this app, we're trying to help coaches, not just softball or baseball, coaches from every sport, make it easier for them when they're out recruiting. Right now, a lot of the recruiting work is manually entering recruits' information into a database. So for us, this app is to try to get it so you can simply scan an athlete's email. They will get alerted that they are being recognized by a college coach, and they just kind of fill in their information for you so that it can get stored in one overall database. But our goal for everything that we kind of put out there is to help coaches. Again, regardless of sport, we just want to try to help them make their lives a little bit easier so that they can actually pay attention to, like we were talking about, the relationship building and maybe the things that will actually help make their program more successful versus having to be sitting at a computer manually typing in information endlessly.
Yeah. Diego?
Yeah, so kind of to piggyback off of what Lindsay was saying is this is actually our second product that we're coming out with. Our first product was Alpha Science. It was software designed specifically for the baseball and softball world. This one is being designed entirely for the overall world of college athletics. It's specifically targeting college coaches, and it's just going to be one of many tools that we already have planned in our entire roadmap. It uses, it's going to be it's going to be available on the App Store, and it uses, machine learning and AI to just systematize the entire process. And something that would take a week to do in the office will now be done in a matter of seconds, like literally
Fully seconds. Yeah,
Yeah,
like 30 seconds max.
So we came up with the idea, I guess last year, and because we needed it for ourselves,
Every tool that we have come up with, it's because we realized we needed it. We're like, if we need
good.
it, we're not the only people who need it.
Yeah.
Right.
So and we're excited about it. There's no other product like it on the market. And we are super excited to unveil it. We've already unveiled it to some of our colleagues. And so far, there has not been one coach that hasn't been like, oh my God, this is a game changer. And that
Send me the invoice before it's even available.
I mean, that just validates what we already know and have been working very hard at creating. But it does give us a greater sense of confidence, and we look forward to a lot of growth with our software startup that we have over the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah, for sure. But this is not the first thing that you guys have worked on together. Tell me about this convention that I've heard a lot about.
Dear, you can take it away.
okay, so the Be the Best in Baseball and Softball convention historically has always been based out of Cherry Hill, I was fortunate enough to discover it, I think back when I was in either college or high school coaching with my brother, and we were blown away. Along the way, I was able to create a lot of relationships with some of the coaches, and the opportunity came to own it. So we jumped on the opportunity as a way to create sustainability to our business model, because Alphas Alliance is ultimately a software startup, and we wanted to make sure that we don't just place bet on the technology we're creating, and that we're able to kind of drive the progress of anything we create by having a strong pulse on the game and have very strong relationships with coaches from all levels. So this conference we moved it to Wilmington. When I moved to Wilmington, it's going to be January 13th through the 15th at the Wilmington Convention Center. And we're excited about it. We have some of the best coaches in both worlds, in baseball, softball, speaking. We have an Olympian that will also be speaking. We have someone that talks about mental performance for the college, for a lot of college programs either as well. And it's gonna be a lot of fun. Hopefully you can make it here too.
That sounds really cool. What are you hoping to get across with this convention? I mean, like, if there was one huge takeaway, what would it be?
I think it's hard to say one huge takeaway. I feel like with everything we've done so far, we're trying to see all of the possibilities with it. So obviously, because we are bringing in different coaches and trying to provide a place for coaches to kind of network and connect with other coaches, that's something that's super important for us too. We're trying to obviously build relationships and kind of work with the town of Wilmington, because that's going to be new for us, especially with bringing it there for the 50th year anniversary. So that's another thing in itself. And then also, we're also trying to kind of, I don't want to say tackle, but start working with the NIL opportunities for college athletes. So kind of bringing in exhibitors, whether they are specific to baseball and softball or kind of local exhibitors for that area, and connecting them with different athletes. So not only are we working on the networking piece for coaches to meet other coaches, we're trying to help athletes out and give them a space to maybe contact and work with other neighboring companies or businesses, and really try to help build their name, but also help kind of build them something that could be sustainable for after they graduate, or get them on the right path to help them succeed after they graduate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the NIL opportunities have kind of created their own monster within college athletics. And I'm really interested to see how that's going to play out later down the line. I know we're kind of in the first push of what can I do with this new freedom? But as it becomes more regulated, I think it's going to be interesting to see how each athlete is impacted.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about NIL. Right now, I think it's more of like the Wild Wild West, because it seems like this new, exciting, possibility for athletes. But my views on it is that it seems as though everyone is again trying to build off of the excitement of the short-term possibilities. But when you look at the big picture, 95% of the US economy is small business. So how many of those small business owners were former athletes themselves, have played sports? There is a very big opportunity here to provide, like Lindsay said, like a level of sustainability as to how it relates to life after college, life after being a student athlete. The normal college student, they have opportunities to study abroad and stuff. Very, very few college athletes have that opportunity because of their sport, because of their schedule, even less so at the Division I level. So, being able to become a well-rounded person, that has to be a main focus. And it's not easy, and that's another reason, tying it back to mental health, why athletes feel like lost after they're done, because 99% of their time they were doing that, and they didn't fully enjoy their college experience the way you should have. So, you know, my passion for NIL, I guess, is driven more from the big picture as to how it can really empower the small business economy, how it could tie in education, and how it could also provide not only an incentivizing way for these athletes to, of course, make money off their name, image, and likeness, but also educate them that, hey, these are all the different avenues that you can go in after the game and still be tied to your interest, you know, if you choose to do so. So I think the world of possibility is endless, but I do think that you're right. I think right now, because it's only been about a year and a half in, it's kind of creating a little bit of a monster. But there's also a lot the NCAA can't do at the federal level. So that's something that we will see more challenges of that, because this is America, you know, it's the country of capitalism. So that's going to be something that, you know, it's going to be exciting. The evolution of it over the next few years is going to be very, very interesting. So,
and the evolution of U2's business plans seem very interesting as well over the next few years. I'm excited to follow along.
We are
Hear about the convention.
we are excited too. I think we've progressed a little faster than we thought so far.
Well, that's the opposite of a problem.
That's true. It's a little scary though.
Yeah. We laugh because we always bring up, like, can you imagine having this conversation at this time last year? Because last year we essentially started this. So we'll have conversations, like midway through the conversation, we're like, what? If anyone were to listen to us right now, they'd be like, what? Like, it's crazy to see how far we've come in a year and a half.
Yeah, that's epic. Let's see when your interview will be posted. I don't think you guys have very long. I think it's a fairly quick turnaround. So the 28th of September. So you have a couple weeks. If there's anything that happens between now and then, including the launch of your app, if you can just kind of keep me up to date on how the app is doing, any updates between now and then, you can email me, you can direct message me on Instagram or Twitter, just so I can have, when this does go live, the most updated information. Things like availability of App Store versus Google Play Store, types of people, types of athletes and coaches who are on the app, types of just variety of people, analytics wise, who are using the app. That would be great. I also do this really fun thing for season 2's guests. I have asked them and put together a playlist of songs that they feel inspired by.
This is great.
So
I have this.
I've had so many different types of songs on here. So it can either be a song that is inspirational to you or something that reminds you of mental toughness or mental wellness.
Just one song? Just one song?
Yeah, just one song.
Per each of us, or just one?
Yeah,
Okay.
per each of you.
Okay.
If I can get that either right now, if you have one that you're thinking of, or if you can,
I might need some time.
if
I might need to look for my music real quickly.
Yeah. You can just email it to me, along with a picture that I can use for social media of each of you.
Okay.
And I'll get back in touch once this is published.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. I loved all the questions.
Thank you for coming on. I'm excited to put this together. I think there are some really applicable topics from today.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.